Okay, hi everyone, and welcome to another little drawing time with me. You're welcome to follow along. And today I'm going to be looking at a Pokemon called, I believe the pronunciation is Deino. It's a dark dragon type, and it is described as in the Pokemon Essential Handbook. This one's got 700 in, so it's not the complete book, but it is described as Deino can't see, so they explore their surroundings by biting and crashing into things. Because of this, they are often covered in cuts and scratches. So that gives us a good idea. That's what we're going to go for. Now, if you like what you see today, then please feel free to hit that subscribe button. You'll also find this video over on my YouTube channel, so it'll be here just for a little while and then it goes over to YouTube. But you're more than welcome to watch, and anything that I can help you with, if I can, I always will. So feel free to ask questions. Now, before I start drawing the Deino for proper drawing, I need to know what it is. So in the description it's telling us that it can't see. So it either has no eyes or the head has got a problem with it, either fur or scales are covering it. So the only way they seem to be able to know their surroundings is by touch and smell. Now, when looking at the character design in the books, it shows them with not much detail really, just this kind of headpiece, skinny little neck, and something around the base, and also a horn, a possible horn. Now, I'm not sure if that's meant to be fur or scales. I personally love the idea of it being scales, so because it's a dragon type, you'd expect maybe a dragon to have scales. And my little hypothesis is that the overgrowth is actually a mutation and a deformity within the scales, which means that whilst the dragon is young, it's basically the scales grow too far, maybe too much vitamin A or something like that, and so they cover over the eyes, rendering the dragon blind. So that's my hypothesis, and that's where I'm going to be going with this drawing. The paper I'm going to be using today is going to be Daler & Rowney's layout paper. Now, my reason for using this paper is that it's like tracing paper but a little bit thicker. So this one, I bought this at closing down sale, so you can tell how cheap I got it. So it's 45 grams, and it's quite light, and this is our A4 size, so nice light paper. And my apologies about my phone going off. I'm going to shove something on it. It's work again. It's 19:15 in the evening and my work is still pinging around. So the reason I'm going to be using this paper is because this drawing is going to take multiple stages. We're going to do a rough sketch and work out what the creature is, and then we're going to build it up, build a skeleton, and go in for the full measure. Right. And if you're wondering why I haven't got my phone on mute, is because there are calls that I do need to take. So I can't mute it and miss something important, so apologies about the bing bonging. Work. So let's look at the creature. Right, so Deino is, in the cartoon version, it's pretty much a circular head, a skinny little neck, a kind of ornate frill, and a little stout body, and then little leggies sticking out. I'm just going to go over that with a slightly chunkier pencil. These are both 2B pencils, but this one's slightly fatter, just so that you can see that. So, oh yeah, and a little horn out the head. So that's the initial shape that it's been given. So, what is a Deino? I'm thinking the animals I think that make it up is a goat, because the foot, if you notice on the drawing, has got one large claw and two little ones. which would mean it would be very, very good at moving around, jumping around, and if the tendons are strong enough, like a kangaroo's foot, which is literally one large toe if you look at a kangaroo's leg and foot, then it would be able to get quite good propulsion, which is why the Dinos seem to be either very fast or very strong. So I'm putting down as part goat, I'm putting down as part dragon, because of the scales. Well, it's got a little stubby tail, hasn't it, which is really goat-like. So far we've got a goat dragon. And my other reason for going for scales is that on the image it shows little red patches, which I guess are scars. Fur doesn't scar, as in you wouldn't physically be able to see it on the fur so much as under the fur. I mean, some scarring does come up a different colour, but it wouldn't be as obvious. Whereas scales, you can see it. So, what do we start with? So we're going for a scale defect, or scale mutation. And scars. And then we're going for a lively, and I can't spell, bouncy, fast, agile, and powerful. These are all attributes that we want to put into this creature. So my first idea is, apart from my bad spelling, is to write down what I'm looking for in the creature. I've got my rough shape, and these are the attributes that I now want to put into this shape. So that's the first thing that I do on a bit of scrap paper before I even start drawing, is what makes the creature what it is. So I've got my attributes, so now I can do my drawing. I'll flip this over so you don't have to put up with the writing. Okay. Nice thing about this is it's almost like a tracing paper. So we're going to do the skeleton part of the drawing. And you can do this as dark or light as you like, any pencil you like. So to start with, we're going to do the good old-fashioned oval. And that's going to be the rough structure of the head. I'm just going to move my... everything falls down. Right, next we want the neck. Now if you come straight down, on the Pokemon drawing the neck is really skinny, but that's not going to have the muscles to support the animal when headbutting, which is another goat-like tendency. And goat headbutts hurt, I can happily tell you that. So we're going to do a line downwards, which is going to be where it joins the body, and then you want to do a triangle a little way, and then a small triangle back. So you've got a kind of long elongated triangle going up towards the head, and that's just going to represent a group of muscles. Now from this point you can put another triangle in, and that's going to represent where your airway and your trachea are, because the animal's got to eat and breathe. Don't care what they say in the world of Pokemon. So next, of course, you want your oval to mark out roughly where your shoulder is. Now halfway round this one, you're going to do another oval, and it's going to be where your rib cage is. So quite a big ovally egg shape. And then you're going to do a squashed oval, and this is where your lower lumbar will be, so the lower part of your spine. And then we do another little oval at a slight kind of tilt, not quite as extreme as the one at the neck, but just angled downwards a little weeny bit. And that's going to be your hip. So that's already bulked out a few of the proportions. Now we're going to go back to the shoulder circle, and you're going to do a kind of triangle shape from the top parts of the circle downwards, to the bottom, and before you get to the bottom you want to do another little circle. So this is the shoulder joint onto the elbow. Sorry if I'm going really fast, this is I will try and slow down, I promise. So from the elbow you want to go a little bit out, and then this part you don't want to do circle as such, you want to, so from this bit at the end here you want a little bit sticking out, and then it's almost like a 2x4, so kind of a long rectangle, and then a little circle, so it's kind of overshot the bit. Then another one, only slightly different angle, and this one needs to be a little bit shorter, and then another circle at the end of that, and then you want to do a triangle. Because what I'm going to say is, because of those feet, I think you could go away with doing Deino as a partially hoofed animal, and I'll show you how to change that triangle into a hoof. But if we go over to the hip area, and the first thing you want to do is do a little circle, and then, how can I describe this? If you do a half circle, and then a long stick, but you want it to line up with your little joint over here, your wrist, shoulder, elbow, this bit. So you can draw an imaginary line there, or you can do it by eye, and then you want to curve that round slightly and take that back up, so it's a proper little bone shape there. Then we're going to do the same little stretched out rectangle, and once again you want it to line up with this circle, and this is going to give you realistic proportions. Now this part of the leg is going to do what this bit does, so you almost want to take that bit and put it over here. So you come out a little bit, and then you go down a little bit, you do your circle and your triangle. And these knobbly bits are going to be where most of your tendons and muscles are joined. That helps the propulsion. So that is your basic skeleton for the character. So you want to add in another arm and a leg. So let's see. So I'm going to come straight down. I'm going to bring this bit here. And that, if you do a little line, very likely it will help you just keep your measurements right. And if you're raising the foot up, always make sure that it's slightly higher. So there we go. It's definitely worth having a look at pictures of cats and dogs and horses, goats, cows, anything you can see running, walking, trotting, galloping. It will help you a huge amount with understanding motion and how the limbs move. So that is a very, very rough skeleton, and that's as far as you want to go, because if you start drawing over your muscles over this bit, it's going to get really, really confusing. So this is why I love my layout paper. But like I say, tracing paper does the job equally as good. So then we can take our next sheet. And I can see the original skeleton underneath that. I think you should be able to as well, just about. Of my camera tripod shadow. So now we can start to add in a little bit of bulk. So where I would start is from the top of the skull. I would just lightly follow that triangle and do a little hump for the shoulder, and then if you do a straight line to where we did that kind of squished shape, and this time very very carefully, don't go full over the oval, just take a little nibble off of it, and that'll give you the angle of the hip. So that was down the back of the neck, over the shoulder blade, along the back, and down the hip, and that's your back. And that's where we're going to base a lot of the bits from. So for the shoulder, you're going to want to follow that triangle, but bring it out just slightly. And then where you've got your little circly bit, you're going to want to do a slightly bigger circle, but not complete it. So almost like a little half C there. Now from the half C, you want to do a small oval below that, but you don't want to go over that rectangle because that's the bone. On the other side, you're going to want to do a big half circle. So that's going to be your bicep and tricep. And then from that little knobbly bit sticking out, you want to do a very light oval and another stretched out oval. Now from here, this little point here, you're going to want to do a kind of curved triangle back up into the top oval. And that's just a little group of muscles that are around the shoulder. So then you can come down to the joint down here, go down to the finger joints. Now for the foot, I did say we'd treat it like a kind of goat stroke kangaroo foot. So you want to come out slightly and do the main toe, and then bring in the side toe, and you want a little bit of a kind of spongy pad for shock absorbency, and then back round. So on the other leg, you would do the two flattish ovals, the circle bit of the joint, come down to the other circly bit and back up, and then for the toe, you're going to spread it, make it a little bit longer, and then bring it back up like so. Now straight away I can tell a few of you are probably thinking, those legs are too skinny. Right, the description said the animal couldn't see without bumping into things, biting and scratching. This is an animal that's going to walk straight up to a buffet meal and be able to plough in. It's got to hunt its food very specifically. Might even be using vibrations through the ground, through the feet. So it's not going to be a well-fed animal. It's going to probably be an emaciated, skinny little thing. So that's the way that I'm kind of looking at it. So for the hip, we're going to do the same as we've kind of done with the front leg. But this time from the top, we're going to come out and do a squished oval. And you want to bring it back about halfway around that leg bone that you've done. And then you need to do another one of those. And that needs to come right round to make two little ovals, and then you want a circle underneath them. Now this bit's a little bit weirder. You're going to need to do a circle just above the little leggy bone that's here, and then where that little bit poked out, you want to do a triangle attaching that circle. So that's like a little triangle there, and that's where some of the key tendons are that give the propulsion. Now in front of that, you're going to do another oval, a little skinny oval, and then you can do tiny skinny ovals like on this one. You don't need too much detail on there, and then back down to do the toes. So now we've got our shoulders and the front legs, and our hip and the back legs. So then for the rib cage, as I said, I get the feeling this would have been quite a thin animal. Now the rib cage should be roughly from the elbow joint, and it should come upwards at an angle. So you need to curve that off, so that will come up probably around to there. And this gap here is where the lumbar and the flexation and the spine is. So there's our rib cage. Now we need to kind of join that up to the rest of the body. So what we do is a small flap. We would start a line underneath that just slightly, because you've got muscle and tissue underneath the ribs. And then we'd curve it just up slightly and join to the leg. So actually it's quite a well-fed animal. And then once you can map in your muscles around your ribs however you fancy. So that's your part of your body. Now onto the head. The reason I've left this last is it's a little bit more tricky. So the animal's got a roundish head, and I'm thinking parrots because of the bill. Also scales tie in with parrots, because feathers are a type of scale, I think. So in this case we're going to do the dome part of the head. We're going to bring it around following that oval, and you're going to give it a little hook, and then almost like a little smiley face, upside downy, kind of C shape, a little downward triangle, and then you want to come back out towards the neck and swirl around. And then for the jaw, you want to come from this bottom of the top jaw, do a little kind of U shape, come downwards, and where the pointy bit is going to be line. Once you get to that line, that's the deepest part of your jaw. Then you head back up, do a little hooky bit, and then curve that just slightly upwards, and that's your jaw. Now you need to join the head to the rest of the body. So we've got our back bit of the neck, so you now want to add a little bit of an outward curve to that, and where that triangle is, if you curve that triangle now in to meet with the arm, and then for this deepest point in the neck you need to now curve this to a triangle, well, create a triangle by curving this shape towards the line that you've just done, and then bring that down to the chest, because now we've got room for a spine, an esophagus, and an airway. And there's enough muscle here, because you've now got enough room for a proper trapezium muscle which cuts across the shoulder. There's enough room now to have a muscular neck, so if this animal hits you, the shockwave is going to be much less damaging to it than if it had a skinny little neck like in the Pokemon book, where if that charged you it would break its neck. And of course this little critter has a horn, so we can use that straight line and put a little horn on. Now we know this creature is blind or can't see, but if you were to put an eye in, you would put it also on that line, and because it's a predator, the nostril is on the tip of the snout. And now this creature's got a little stump of tail. Now if it's a working tail so it can wag, the tailbone will just come out of the hip about here. If it's just a ball of fluff, it would probably go about here if it was a ball of fluff. So that is now your muscles. So we've got our basic skeleton, and placement of the limbs. And then we've got our rough muscle ideas. So now we know roughly the shape and the power that's in the animal. So next we can go over that with the skin and start to do the start to add in the detail. So once again we're going to go for another sheet of paper. This does seem like a lot of useless paper, but think about it, you can go back and use those builder sheets to create other animals, because if you get your muscles and such right, you could put a pair of wings on here, you could put an extra leg in. So these little sheets are really handy for getting your proportions and also for practice papers. So they do have a very, very useful use. So for the next sheet, I want to add some skin on there and some detail. So I'm only going to be drawing over lines that are really important. So the first thing I'm going to do is come back to the shoulder. I'm not going to draw the full shoulder blade in. I'm just going to draw a little bit there, and then just a tiny bit of lump where I know there's a muscle. For the leg, I'm going to pretty much follow the lines that are already there. I'm just going to round off that corner. And do you remember where we curved it up back to the shoulder muscle? I'm going to follow that just slightly. Now for the underside, so from the elbow and just along. And the other leg, along, a little bit of a nodule where the joints are, out to the toe, find the other toe, the pad, along, knobbly bit for the joints, and back up to the body. Just need to sharpen this pencil. Nothing worse than having a blunt pencil. And this is a solid graphite one, just a cheapy one. So next we got to the back leg. So in this case I'm only going to go up a little bit, and then I'm going to come down, a little bit of a lump where that joint is. Then I'm going to come straight along, and a little curve down to where the joints of the foot is. Draw the toe, the pad, joints, back up. Now this bit's quite fun because you know the triangle went that way. We're going to curve it round to join up to the kind of backside muscle up here, but not too high. So we come along, instead of following that curve that way, we do the opposite. We come up and we go that way. And you can just kind of highlight where that curve is, not fully, just give a couple of little lines there and a little line just there. Have a look at horses' back legs and you'll see where I'm coming from with that. And then you can follow the hip round to where the tail's going to be, and then again on the other leg. There's the other foot. So now I'm going to come on to the shoulder, slightly above the original line and slightly above the original line for the back, because once again you've got muscles and such. And for the hip I'm going to do a tiny little nodule there. Now there's two lines here. I'm going to do one over, and then I'm going to do a slight one just underneath, and that's going to show me where the hip actually physically is. Another thing that you'll see on a lot of mammals. And for the tail, you'll see I've gone over slightly. That's fine, because then I come over and I flesh that in and up. And there's our fluffy tail. So next, onto the head. Now this is where a lot of it's going to change. So, I know where my eye is from my underdrawing. I know where all my detail is. So now I add the final detail. So for this we're going to go for scales. So we're going to have a scale here. And these are like leaf shapes. A scale here. One over the jugal area. And these are all going to be complete different shapes, sizes. Not one's going to be really the same. I'm going to have one just here. And the horn is just poking up there. So another here, here, and then one here. And you've got to remember you probably best doing smaller scales around the back of the neck because of the flexation. So that's the scales which have covered the eyes. Poor little thing. And you can add detail to those scales. I'm hoping my camera is behaving. I get the feeling it's not today. Let's try that. Any better? I might have to move this. Hopefully you can see that. Sorry about this. So next we follow that line that we did originally down to the nose. And then we only bring it in a little bit because there's a scale that just needs to go over that bit. And then you can do the beak-like parts of the mouth. Bring it back up. And then add in your nose. And then there's your head design. So we can put in a few scales here. And you can go over the parts where you mapped out the neck because these will be adding density, especially if they're poking upwards slightly. And because this animal's going to need to swallow, I will probably leave a little tiny bit around the throat clear of any scales because there's going to be quite a bit of movement around that neck area of the neck. And due to the fact this Pokemon looks quite scruffy, the scales are in different erratic directions. And then they join up just where the arm is. You don't want them any further forward than this because this arm has to, this part of the shoulder still has to move forward. So if you can, put a couple of smaller scales into that bit. Now I would mark in just very lightly where a couple of those muscles are, just with a couple of C and U shapes. See it? And just around where you've done the front of the back leg, do a little C facing back towards the ribs, and where the top of your elbow bit is, just do a very light curve. And this will actually tell us where the rib cage is. So I'm just going to have a quick look at the drawing in the book again. Always go back to your reference material, reread, have a think about it. So, Dinos can't see. Check. So they explore their surroundings by biting. It's got a bite. Because of this, they often cover cuts and scratches. So the good news is now you can take another piece of paper, lay it on top of this, and then ink the version if you feel confident enough, or pencil over the same again, and then apply your ink over the pencil. And to do little scratches, you can just do very light kind of squiggly lines over the scales, which is where the scratches would appear. And to fill in some detail on the scales, just do a couple of lines from the centre of them. So that is the first part of how I would approach drawing a dino from Pokemon. So from the cutesy character that you've got in the book, we've converted it into a more realistic, believable creature by looking first off at what makes a creature. In fact, I need to put parrot on her. So we've looked at the shape, we've looked at what the creature could be made of, what its attitude is like, what its skills are like. Does it have kind of I want to say makeup kind of thing, attributes and things that stick out and make it unique. So each one of these would have different scars, and probably scale mutations would be quite different in each one. So then from that we've drawn a very, very rough skeleton and had to think about all of the animals that we've put in there. From there we've worked out what the basic muscles would look like, just using basic oval shapes and lines. And then from there we've gone over that and given ourselves an outline. And from this outline you're now ready to ink if you want to, and add detail and add colour. In truth, with layout paper I would definitely ink onto a different paper. You can use a light box to do this, or if you feel confident enough to start drawing from scratch, have a go, see if you can build it up using a very light pencil. So literally just have your hand right up the barrel and just stroke the paper gently, and you can probably do the whole thing on one piece of paper just from start to finish. Rub out any of your excess lines and then you can ink and colour. But I hope that's given you some ideas of how to draw this character and how to think about how to make a character, what makes it special, what makes it unique. So on the next one I'm hoping to do the inking and the colouring and give you some ideas on how to approach that. So thank you very much for watching, and I hope to see you again soon. So take care, until next time, happy drawing.